Time for Newsnight now, BBC Two, with Emily Maitlis.
Tonight, after a week of rioting, how big is the damage to England's social fabric? Will we look back on the summer of 2011 as deeply significant or a fleeting few days of madness? Gavin Esler surveyed the damage to the nation.
We live in a very different country from the one we thought we had a week ago. The institutions we took for granted, the police, the politicians, the government, reasserted themselves in the end, but they also proved we cannot always rely on them.
With us at the end of an extraordinary week, the historian David Starkey, author Owen Jones and crime writer Dreda Say Mitchell. And as images of burning cities are beamed around the globe, foreign dictators are making mileage out of our misfortune. What does the rest of the world make of us now? David Tang, Tyler Brule and Nabila Ramdani are here. Good evening. The streets are calm. The rioters now diminished to a subdued and steady train through the courts. Public order then nominally restored. But the reminders of an anarchic week are everywhere. Burnt-out buildings, broken windows and, yes, a highly visible police presence. Those numbers will inevitably diminish as we try to return to some kind of normality. But tonight we ask if things have fundamentally shifted and whether the week of rioting has shown us something of our country we didn't know before. Today, as the unseemly tussle continues over who should take credit for bringing us back from the brink, our political correspondent David Grossman has been speaking to all sides. What's been the fallout, David, first of all, from those comments that Hugh Orde made on the programme last night?
Well, exactly. No sooner had peace been restored to the streets than there was this bust-up between the police and the politicians about who should take credit. There's annoyance, a lot of annoyance among senior police officers about the idea that it took the politicians coming back from holiday to bang heads together, the Home Secretary ordering police to come back from leave or no longer have leave. There was a lot of annoyance. Last night, you'll remember, you did the interview with Hugh Orde, where he said that it was ridiculous that the Home Secretary doesn't have the power to order the police a cup of coffee. We'll hear from him, but after that we'll hear from the Home Secretary today, where you'll hear she's much more appreciative of the role that the police took.
The Home Secretary has no power whatsoever to order the cancellation of police leave. The fact that politicians chose to come back is an irrelevance in terms of the tactics that were by then developing.
What I accept was the people who got the riots under control were the police, the brave policemen and women who were out there on the front line dealing with the riots as they were happening.
We heard from Theresa May there. What about the Prime Minister himself?
Well, there's a little puzzlement, I have to say, at Downing Street, that the idea that he claimed to have come back and, you know, like Batman, rescued the country. He doesn't claim to have done that, and going through his statement yesterday to the Commons, he certainly didn't claim to do that. The nearest you can get is him saying that he chaired a meeting and then we have taken a decisive action to ensure more robust and effective policing. But, I mean, I think they emphasise that we have to cast our mind back to where we were a couple of nights ago, and what the country didn't need was a civics lesson about chains of command and who has responsibility for the police and who has responsibility for the judiciary. What they needed to know was that people were taking tough decisions and the country had leadership. So I think that's what they're emphasising tonight.
What about the public? Who are they giving credit to after all this?
Well, it's interesting. We're getting the first polls in now as to who the public think were responsible for it. One poll tonight in The Guardian by ICM asked, when asked who had done a good job, 30% said Cameron had done a good job, 45% said the acting head of the Met, Tim Godwin, had done a good job. Another poll just out in the last few minutes, Comres for The Independent. This is interesting because this is where the subject is going now. It's going over the last few days and going now about cuts to police numbers. Are cuts to police numbers nationally must now be reversed, people were asked, in the light of this week's rioting. Well, 71% agreed that those cuts should be reversed. The government says they won't be. 13% disagree. 16% didn't know. And then on the question of sentencing, we're seeing some very robust sentences for some of the early offenders who've pleaded guilty in the magistrates' courts. Anyone found guilty, people were asked, of taking part in the riots or looting should face an automatic jail sentence no matter how small their involvement. 78% agree, 14% disagree, 8% agree. Going forward, I understand from sources that there won't be a Cobra meeting tomorrow morning. The meeting this morning at Cobra was, I'm told, just a sort of reporting exercise, not too much action.
David, thanks very much, David Grossman. There can never be a good time to have riots, but these ones have come at a particularly inauspicious moment in our history, against a backdrop of austerity and severe economic straits. Some have argued there's a strong link between the two. Others say that's facile. Well, whichever side of that particular divide you're on, the two things running in parallel have provoked a big question. Exactly how much trouble are we really in? Gavin Esler has been assessing what's happened this week and whether it gives us any clues as to where Britain is heading. His piece contains some strong language.
It was something we hoped we'd never see again. Cities on fire. Residents fleeing their homes.
We got outside and then we saw the building there, flames going up the building.
Businesses destroyed. Pitched battles in the heart of English cities. Who would do such a thing, terrorising their own neighbours? Stealing, looting, destroying anything they came across, and why? The riots of 2011 came in a week which changed our country and made us ask some pretty terrible questions about who we are and what we had become. Who were these people who were destroying our cities? What should we do with them? If we saw some of the worst, we also saw a little of the best. Community spirit and extraordinary tolerance from people who had lost so much. It was a week to be ashamed and also occasionally to be just a little proud. It started in Tottenham a week ago, one of the most deprived London boroughs. Police marksmen killed a man they were trying to arrest, Mark Duggan, in disputed circumstances. In the aftermath, a peaceful protest soon turned ugly. Patrol cars, a shop and a bus were set ablaze by masked young men. The following morning, we slowly woke up to what had been done to one of our communities by some of its citizens, a self-inflicted wound. The victims, neighbours, small businesses, local residents, us. Tottenham's MP, David Lammy, toured the community and expressed the outrage of many at the rioters.
We now need restraint and calm. And I say to those who wanted to come to Tottenham to cause violence and disturbance to stay away.
But other people were also listening, those who saw the Tottenham riot not as an outrage, but as an opportunity.
London's hit by a second night of rioting. Looting and vandalism spread to other areas of the capital, including Brixton, Enfield.
The violence was to spread like a madness which proved contagious. Enfield, Brixton, Ealing, Harlesden, Croydon, Clapham, Hackney, and then Birmingham, Manchester, Nottingham and other English cities. When we woke up to the damage yet again, the same questions from the previous night were repeated more insistently. Where were the police? Why didn't they stop it? Why was the Prime Minister, his deputy and the Home Secretary all on holiday at the same time? The Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, was the first visibly back on duty.
As Deputy Prime Minister, can I ask you, is this like what's going to happen in England now because of cuts and, you know, people's homes are going to be burnt and suddenly made homeless?
No, I don't think so.
Why weren't we protected?
The violence continued. And now the simmering anger of the law-abiding majority was directed at police, politicians and, above all, the enemy within.
It's absolutely disgusting. They are feral rats. What are those parents doing? Those children should be at home.
In a shocking few days, this one incident of a Malaysian student being apparently helped by those who then robbed him seemed to sum up the amorality, greed and viciousness of the week which shamed us all.
He just took something from his bag.
When the Prime Minister finally returned from his holiday in Italy, his response was resoundingly tough.
I have this very clear message to those people who are responsible for this wrongdoing and criminality. You will feel the full force of the law. And if you are old enough to commit these crimes, you are old enough to face the punishment.
And then something remarkable happened. Tens of thousands of people, many with brushes in their hands, turned out to help clean up their own neighbourhoods, waiting for police to let them in to city centre crime scenes. Some scathingly talked of the pointless destruction as recreational rioting and shopping with violence.
What happened here last night, and most of what's going on here now, ain't about politics. It's about an individual and what they want to do, and all they want to fucking well do is kill, take, steal and rob from their own and from people who are working hard.
The political classes, in this case the Mayor of London, tried hard to catch up and catch on.
It's time we stop hearing all this, nonsense about how there are deep sociological justifications for wanton criminality and destruction of people's property. Whatever people's grievances may be, it does not justify smashing up someone's shop, wrecking their livelihood, kicking them out of a job.
And that kind of discussion could be heard everywhere, where there are reasons for rioting or merely excuses.
All you're doing is jailing our children. Look in the mental institutions. Young black people in the mental institutions. Look in the youth offenders, right? They're in prison. Is any of your kids in prison? Is any of your kids getting stopped and searched? No, they're not. So continue the riots.
From street corners in Clapham to the Newsnight studios, you could hear the same differences of opinion.
Listen to the point about parenting that was made in the earlier discussion. Actually, parents
Who's been in charge of parenting policy for the last 13 years, Harriet? Who gave us this deficit? Harriet, if there is anyone who's responsible for the environment in which these young people grew up, it's you and the Labour Party.
As London slowly came back to normal, the violence continued in other big cities, with young people again on the rampage in Manchester, and in Birmingham 3 young men killed when a car ran into a group of Asian men trying to protect their homes and businesses. New fears followed of reprisals, interethnic tensions and vigilantes.
There are pockets of our society that are not just broken, but frankly sick.
But of all the words spoken this week, the father of one of the young men killed in Birmingham stands out.
Anything I ever wanted done, I would always ask Haroon to sort it out for me. Not my eldest or my daughter, or my youngest. And they killed him.
In the past week, you could see broken Britain and sick Britain. You could also see, as people volunteered to clean up and protect their own neighbourhoods, Community Britain, Solidarity Britain, Generous Britain, a society which got over the shock, mostly kept calm and carried on. The young Malaysian student who was mugged appeared at a news conference and learned people have donated thousands of pounds to help him. We live in a very different country from the one we thought we had a week ago. The institutions that we all take for granted, the police, the politicians, the government, reasserted themselves in the end, but they proved that at times we just cannot always rely on them. And beyond those institutions, our society, which means people like you and me, also failed for a while. We did come together, but only after so nearly coming apart.